The 16 nominees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's class of 2021. In just 1 week, we're going to find out which musicians are going to be taking their place alongside rock's biggest icons. With us now to talk about this year's class, we have the president and the CEO of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Foundation, Joel Peresman. Also with us, the host and executive producer of Showtime's The Circus and host of the Hell and High Water podcast from The Recount, John Heilemann. Joel, what a class! There's great variety here, and also you wonder how the voters are going to be able to narrow it down.
Well, we're very proud of this year's class because I think it really truly reflects the diversity of what everyone's definition of rock and roll is. I mean, it's a broad brush of artists and very diverse, and I think there's something there for everyone.
Yeah, John Heilemann, looking through this list, there is a broad brush from Jay-Z to Todd Rundgren, Devo to Carole King. You can go through this entire list. There is somebody. There's a band for everybody, an act for everybody. Any personal favorites that stick out to you?
Yeah, Joe, I think, it's one of the things every year I'm a voter, thanks to the Hall for the last, 7, 8 years. And I always post the nominees. We're sent this list, the class, we're allowed to choose 5. I believe Joel will correct me if I'm wrong, that they can put in up to 7 now. There's the rule in a given year. So, you have 5 picks in this year's class. There's way more than 5 that I think are worthy of getting in. And I think one of the most important things about this is that, the point about diversity, which is I post this thing on social media, the ballot every year. And there's always this incredibly tedious argument with people who say, these hip hop acts shouldn't be in, or this R&B act shouldn't be in. Why is Dionne Warwick on this list? Why is LL Cool J on this list? Why is a pop group on this list? Why is Devo? Devo's not rock and roll. For some number of people, it's like the Hall has made a decision to have a very diverse, a very broad church definition. And, so for me, when I go about filling out a ballot, I'm often thinking about doing some strategic voting. Try to vote for some people who I think need the vote, who kind of need some help. Make sure the Go-Go's is on my ballot this year. Right. The first, most important girl rock, all-woman rock group that was a groundbreaking group. But I'm always going to have a hip-hop act. So this year, I'm voting for LL Cool J, but not for Jay-Z, who I think is a mortal lock to get in. But hey, Jay-Z doesn't need my vote this year. So if I'm going to pick a hip-hop act, I'm going with LL, who I think deserves to be in. I could go on and on, but I think it's a lot of fun to be involved in the process.
It really is. And you talk about Dionne Warwick. And of course, Joel, a lot of people don't remember Dionne Warwick's teaming up with Burt Bacharach in the 1960s, dismissed at the time maybe as easy listening, maybe dismissed as sort of middle-of-the-road music. And yet, I can't tell you the number of rock musicians through the decades. You talk to them or you read their interviews. Oasis is a good example. And they're like Elvis Costello. They're like Burt Bacharach. Oh, my God. His songs that Dionne Warwick sang on, those shaped my songwriting in ways like Lennon and McCartney shaped my songwriting.
Well, that's part of our job as an institution at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because, rock and roll is a very broad definition. So, like I said, it means a lot of things to different people. And really look at it, I've always said, and the people that established the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in this wonderful museum in Cleveland really looked at it as the art form of our generation. And the different people. When people I might walk into a museum and want to see photographers like Walker Evans or Bernice Abbott, and someone wants to see a Picasso. Someone likes Dionne Warwick and someone likes Rage Against the Machine. It all started in kind of the same place, in the same river, and just flowed into different tributaries that people have their favorites. They're passionate about their favorites. And that's one of the beauties of rock and roll.
Hey, Joel, some people look at this list of nominees and say, how on God's green earth are Tina Turner and Carole King not already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? But they are? Do I have that right?
Yeah, Tina Turner was in with Ike, and Carole King was in with her husband as a songwriter. And again, look, this isn't, they're really finally, they got their due as solo artists. I mean, we're not perfect. This isn't physics, and we're not, basing everything on empirical formulas. It's a little bit of subjective, and finally they're getting their due. So I think they're well overdue, and to see them hopefully, see if they get in, I think people will be very happy about that, and it's be well deserved.
Well, yeah, and John Heilemann, I certainly will be very happy about it. As far as Carole King goes, obviously she's in as a songwriter, but you just look, even if she had great albums throughout the 70s, but if you just look at Tapestry, like I think in 71, that is a cornerstone of American popular music. Sure. And whoever that artist is that performed that, whether he or she were already in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, just on the power of that single game-changing album, I think that person should be in the Hall.
Yeah, I mean, again, Joe, I think there's obviously a strong case for Carole King. She's, again, as Joel just said, she's already in the Hall as a songwriter. So I think, I think there will be a lot of people that will be really happy if she now also gets in as a performer. I think she's worthy. But this is the challenge of this thing, man. Look at this list. You can make a credible case for, I would say, almost everybody on the list to be in. And so some of the challenges of voter is, Rage Against the Machine is going to be in the Hall. Should Rage Against the Machine get in this year's class? Didn't get my vote this year, and I love Rage Against the Machine, but I'm fairly certain that they're going to get in eventually. You look at the New York Dolls, is probably arguably one of the most influential groups on the list. If influence is the metric, New York Dolls, not a hugely popular group, but a massively influential group across a bunch of genres of rock and roll. So you could make a credible case for the New York Dolls to be in. I think you could make a credible case for Devo to be in. Fela is one of the great, most important international stars in the history of music. I mean, in terms of Afrobeat, Fela is as influential across the world as almost anybody in the history of popular music. How can you not vote to put that guy in the Hall? Again, it's a real challenge to get it down to 5, and I'm curious do you have an idea, Joe, if you had to vote, what your 5 would be?
I do. I am voting, but I won't say exactly. I just want to echo, though, what you said, though. The New York Dolls, a band that most people don't know about. The New York Dolls shaped music, not only in New York, across the world. It's hard to really, they're just one of those bands like Nirvana exploding in 91. It's just one of those bands. It's hard to really put sort of a metric on their influence. Same thing you were talking about so many of these other bands that are so influential. You look at Devo, a band that people sort of laughed at when they first came out. But, man, you talk about a band that was influential as far as new wave goes and on-stage theatrics. That's another. There are so many great bands, so many tough choices. But hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.